Booming Blade is overpowered in patch 8 of Baldur's Gate 3, so I'll be showing you an updated Eldritch Knight fighter subclass build here, which is utilizing Booming Blade, which lets us do 4 attacks in a turn. So 3 attacks per action, plus an additional attack due to the war magic we get at level 7. So it actually is very powerful, and we'll be starting off with the fighter here, obviously, which will give us a nice constitution saving throw proficiency. We're not going to be heavy of a spellcaster, but we do have that option. Now, we do need some intelligence. However, you can also just dump intelligence and use the circlet of intelligence item that you get early on in the game. So that can alleviate a lot of the multi-attribute dependentness of this build, so that we can get our constitution up to 16. We can go with 16 strength and 14 dexterity. So a stat spread like this can work well. And then you can just use the intelligence circlet to take over and not have to worry about that. We're not going to be using a lot of intelligence-based spellcasting, but it's still a nice option to have. We could also add in the Helmet of Arcane Acuity as another really good item. So if you do want to build around that, you can also use strength potions and put those points into intelligence and then use the Helmet of Arcane Acuity. I'll show off that build, but this is the stat spread for otherwise. So this is the spread if you're going to use a strength potion. And for the fighting style, I'd recommend having defense for that +1 armor class. Extremely useful in the early on hours of the game, so I'd recommend that. Level 2, we get the powerful action surge, giving us an extra action, and in honor mode that actually gives us 3 extra attacks, whereas haste does not. So the Arcane Archer, the newest subclass in the block, the Eldritch Knight, got a huge facelift here with getting the ability to use cantrips like Booming Blade, which just massively overpowers this class, because Booming Blade, basically what it does is it does your normal weapon attack damage, and you get a +1d8 and then eventually a 2d8 at level 10 of thunder damage, and then they take an additional 3d8 of thunder damage if they move. So that is extremely useful, as you can set up, kind of shove someone and then go around, or you can really go a variety of different ways to not proc the opportunity attack and make the attacker chase you down. And I guess before getting too far into it, I just want to mention this outfit mod is from the Warden armor set by Scurby. So if you like this appearance, you can check that out in the in-game mod manager. Just want to highlight that quickly. Now, I'd also recommend taking Mage Hand, extremely useful for throwing things like healing potions. And for the spells, I would always recommend taking Shield for that +5 to armor class as a reaction. Super useful. Thunder Wave is another nice one, and so is Magic Missile. The thing with Magic Missile is if you have the Shrieking Song up, you can deal a little extra damage, and it's good for breaking concentrations. And we also get ourselves an expanded spell slot, and something like Find Familiar early game for the Raven can be nice to blind targets. I always recommend having Long Strider. That's a really effective spell to have, so you could go with that. Nothing else really stands out here. We got Booming Blade. We got one of the biggest buffs here. Into level 4, we get to choose another spell here. Chromatic Orb or Thunder Wave. Thunder Wave's nice for that pushback you get. And for an ability score improvement, we could put up our Constitution or Dexterity. However, we could also go with the Great Weapon Master. If we're going to use a two-handed weapon, this can give us a +10 to the damage at a cost of -5 to the attack roll. But there are ways that we can offset that a little bit here, so it does make it a good option if you want to maximize the damage. However, this does give you a bonus action attack, so we already got a good use for our bonus action, so it's not always the most necessary. So another good choice is the Savage Attacker feat, which allows you to reroll your damage die twice and take the highest result. Now, the Eldritch Knight typically goes all in on Tavern Brawler previously, but Booming Blade makes it so that you can be a melee attacker as well. You don't have to rely on the returning weapon ability, but this can also be really good if you want to focus on a little bit of extra damage. And of course, as always, the alert feed for that +5 to initiative is always a good choice, especially in honor mode. This pretty much ensures that you move first, so you can set the tone of combat. And an ability score improvement to Dexterity or Constitution is another good choice you could go with. I think the alert feed just is super useful early on in the game. Ensuring that you can move first is sometimes extremely useful. At level 5, we get an increase to our amount of attacks, big power spike that every class gets at around level 5 or 6. And then at level 6, we get ourselves an additional feat. At this point, you could grab the Returning Pike and take Tavern Brawler and then go all in on attacks like that. The Savage Attacker will give you melee attack rolls rerolled again, and then you can also go with an increase to like Dexterity or Constitution if you preferred. Alternatively, we can bump up our Dexterity even further too, if you didn't want to take Savage Attacker, Great Weapon Master, or any of the other ones. Great Weapon Master is a really nice choice too though, because that gives you that +10 to your damage. Now at level 7, we get the ever powerful War Magic. So after you cast a cantrip, you can make a weapon attack as a bonus action. The nice thing is, weapon actions, like Booming Blade is a weapon action, so you can use it, get an extra attack, and since you already cast a cantrip, you get that bonus action attack again. Now, there is one way that you can make this work. You have to use Booming Blade as your first attack. If you use it afterwards, it doesn't work as properly as it should. So always start with Booming Blade, and you'll be dealing quite a bit of damage. You also get access to level 2 spells. And there's a really nice one here with darkness, because you get advantage on constitution, or you get proficiency in constitution saving throws, so you're going to hold a concentration in darkness a little bit better. With the Eversight Ring, Sharp Spear of the Night, or the Steel Watcher Helmet, those are 3 items that you see in darkness like this, so you can cast it and hide out it and do your attacks from there if you'd prefer. It's an option. It's not going to be absolutely the best option, because we do have other spells like the Scorching Ray there, which is nice, but it's worth taking I mean, if you wanted a defensive option, you can pop darkness, have your team hide out in it, and then drop healing potions down to keep yourself safe. So we can go with that, or Chromatic Orb. Darkness is a player preference. You don't always have to use it. And at the expended spell slot, we do get Shadow Blade, which is going to be our most powerful spell, so we definitely want to take that. But there's also some nice considerations like Misty Step, Hold Person, etc. So some other good choices here. And if we really want to lean into the spellcaster, we could go with some of the other choices like the Hold Person there, as that requires a save, but Shadow Blade doesn't. We can always just cast this and go. And we get another feat here at level 8, so you could go with an increase to your dexterity or to your intelligence here if you want to boost that up, if you didn't take the helmet earlier, or the Warp Circlet of Intelligence earlier. And again, going with the regulars, or even Tavern Brawler can make a lot of sense if you want to throw. I might even just show off the throwing version of this just to give an idea to people that are curious about it, but you can also go with an ability score improvement. Level 9, reroll a saving throw, always a very useful feature to have. And then at level 10, we get the Eldritch Strike. So when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, it has disadvantage on its next saving throw against a spell you cast before the end of your next turn. So what this means is if you attack a creature, you can drop Hold Person, and they'll have disadvantage on the save, meaning it rolls 2 dice, they take the lowest number, giving you a much higher chance of succeeding on something like that. Now, you're obviously not going to be as powerful as some other types of casters, but it could be a good option for you. I always recommend having Firebolt too, because you can explode things. Might not be the best option, but it's one that we can go with. And Minor Illusion as a cantrip is also really useful for out of combat usefulness. I always recommend having at least one person with that. And for our next leveled spell, Gust of Wind can be okay for the pushback. It gives Shatter's an alright spell. We're never really going to be using any of these, so you may as well just grab Chromatic Orb. If you have a Shadow Magic Sorcerer, you can kind of assist them with their dog there. Level 11, extra attack. It's really nice to have that. And we also get another choice in spell here, so we can take Milf's Acid Arrow. And for the final level, we can take that extra feat. That's a good option. Although we can also go with an increase to our spellcasting capabilities, but taking a single level of the Wizard. Now what this gives is we can learn some scroll spells, not a whole lot of them because we don't got high spellcasting, but it's an option. You got some different cantrips we can also grab. So if you wanted to grab any of the other cantrips you previously didn't grab, you got that. And then you can also grab a bunch of extra spells like the Find Familiar, the Ray of Sickness, Mage Armor, things that we don't really care too much about, but this gives you another option. You can also take a single level of the War Cleric, as that'll give you bonus action attacks, but it kind of doesn't really work out well here since we already got our bonus action attacks, and the Wizard doesn't really rely on a high amount of abilities, so you can take some level 2 spells scribed here. I think this ends up being one of the better combinations if you don't want to take the full 12 levels, and if you do, you can take another level of Intelligence. As mentioned, this is the Warden's Armor mod. I'm not going to be using this for the purpose of the build. One of the most important pieces of gear is actually a Scroll of Misty Step, because we can learn this spell, and then this is now going to be in our Wizard spell book. And the nice thing about this is Misty Step is super useful. It's a bonus action. You can teleport away. Sometimes you just need that extra bit of mobility. And then we still have our Find Familiar there too. Additionally, we can also take a Scroll of Hold Person here and learn this one as well for another good spell to take. It's funny, you can't actually learn Scroll of Speak with the Dead either because it's too high of a level. And another good one is Scroll of Mirror Image here, giving us a +9 to our armor class. So our fighter spells will look like this, and then our wizard spells will look like that. So that gives us the Hold Person, Misty Step, Mirror Image, and Invisibility spells. Which is a nice option. You don't have to always use this, but it has some usefulness outside of combat. The Mirror Image giving you that +9 to armor class is really nice. So if you know you're getting into a fight, because it lasts for 10 turns, so you can precast it, go right in, and then you got Misty Step to get away, and Hold Person for the Eldritch Strike. And for gear, we can roll with the Helmet of Arcane Acuity, since right now we got a 16 spell save DC, so a +3 for our intelligence, +4 from proficiency, and then +1 from our gear. Now we can take that up to a 26 using the Helmet of Arcane Acuity, dealing with damage with a weapon attack. You can use an Arrow of Many Targets to hit multiple targets, get that all the way up to a +10 early on in combat, and it also gives you +1 to dexterity saving throws, meaning you'll succeed on fireball saves. We also got the Cloak of Protection for that +1 armor class, Armor of Persistence, which will reduce all incoming damage. You get resistance and blade ward. So this is obviously one of the best items at the end game. However, if you got mid-game gear, Adamantine Scale Mail is going to be a really good option because this will add your dexterity, or this gives you your dexterity modifier +2. You can also go with the heavy armor version of this, but I like to have a little bit of dex. And if you really want to go crazy, the Armor of Agility will give you a 25 armor class, so you get your full dexterity modifier added, which is really nice to have. So that is a very worthwhile consideration if you'd prefer. And obviously there's like the Helldusk armor as well, but the Armor Persistence I feel like fits thematically here. So either that or the Armor of Agility does give you 2 saving throws. So if you want to take half physical damage or that, you can go between these 2 items late game. And in the early game, just kind of use your best available heavy or medium armors. And we also got the Helldusk Gloves. Obviously, this is a late game item, but this gives a bonus to your spell casting, and it gives you additional fire damage on your attacks. So it's going to be one of the best choices. Now, early game, you can go with the Gloves of Dexterity, or the Gloves of Bane, or the Gloves of the Growling Underdog to give you advantage on attacks when you're surrounded by 2 or more enemies. So that's another good option. Even the Wondrous Gloves can give you a +1 armor class too. Or the Martial Exertion Gloves, which gives you that Martial Exertion. Very powerful ability, which makes you take 6 to 36 piercing, but gain an additional action and double your movement speed, which is really strong for short rest. Kind of like a, if you got the action surge again. But the Wondrous Gloves give you that increased armor class, and then if you want the highest possible damage, we'd be going with the Helldusk Gloves there for the fire and spell casting. We also got the Evasive Shoes. We can go with the Boots of Stormy Clamor if you got like the ability drain, a Lithid ability, which will stack the Reverberation. And you can even build around Reverberation if you wanted to with the Gloves of the Blighorn Skies as well. So when you deal thunder damage, lightning, or radiant, you stack Reverberation, which can knock the target prone. Now, a little note, the Ring of Elemental Infusion seems like it works well here, but Booming Blade does not actually trigger this, even though it's a thunder damage spell or cantrip. But this is a not bad ring to have if you want to spell cast. I wouldn't recommend fully going in on the spell casting, so something like the Killer Sweetheart's a better choice probably. Ring Regeneration, free action so you don't get slowed down by difficult terrain. Crusher's Ring for the extra movement speed. Those are some other really good ones that you can roll with. And another one that's really great is the Ring of Arcane Synergy. When you deal damage with a cantrip, you gain Arcane Synergy for 2 turns, which allows you to add your intelligence modifier to your attack or to your damage. So that's pretty good. And the Amulet of Greater Health will put our health up to 146, which is great survivability. But if you have that on another character, Psychic Spark's not bad if you want to plan around Magic Missile. Periaptive Wound Closure will help you receive a bit more healing, which can be nice. Some of these amulets don't really work well with this character, so even Mass Healing Word as a bonus action can be kind of nice if you need an extra little bit of healing. Or to spell Savant Amulet, giving you an extra level 2 spell slot. Now, we got ourselves the Baldur Giant Slayer here for our weapon. This is going to be probably one of the better weapons in this, but we can also go with, like, early game, the Fowler Alluve Sword, Blade of Oppressed Sword. Souls can add a little psychic damage as well as a long sword if you wanted to use a shield alongside. Nyrelna deals thunder damage, which just fits perfectly for this build, so I'm just going to grab that just because that's kind of a solid weapon for this, because we can use our weapon bond and it will automatically return to our hand, but also at the same time we can't just be disarmed with this, and then we can wear shield to take our armor class up to 27. You can use other thrown weapons because it'll make them return to your hand. So if you have the Shar Spear of the Evening, allowing you to hide out in darkness, this can be really good as well. So that's another consideration, but I'm going to use Nyrelna because it's got the thunder damage kind of coded to it, so it just makes sense. But any other longsword, Fowler Alluve, Laurentian's Wrath, those are 2 Act 1 weapons that can work very well here if you want to roll around that. Or even the Knife of the Thunder Mountain King is not a bad choice as well. And we also got Shadow Blade too. So one cool thing that we can do is we can actually start off with the Shadow Blade here. And then what we can do is go to throw our weapon and throw Nyrelna, which will automatically return to our hand so that we can get that automatically a free weapon swap. So yeah, you can start off with a free Shadow Blade here and then swap to something a little different. So there's also a permanent Shadow Blade that you can make. I have a video of that on my channel, but I'll be showing this off now in combat. And if you know you're getting yourself into a fight, you can always go with a precast of Magic Missile here, or Mirror Image here, which will give our armor class a boost to 38. So we're pretty hard to hit, and if we do get hit, we also have resistance. We get a +1d4 bonus to saving throws, and also we get a bonus to our, we got Blade Ward there, resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. So pretty good options for survivability. So since we had the alert feed, we got to go first here, and I guess the first thing to do is, since we got our Shadow Blade here, a nice little bonus is the Resonant Stone, which will double the damage of it. You don't have to use this again. You can use Nyrelna or Baldur and Giant Slayer or Fowler Louvre if you're early on in the game, but Booming Blade with advantage because this is lately shadowed, and Shadow Blade gets that bonus advantage. Same as the Knife of the Undermountain King, and then boom, 42, yeah, quite a bit of damage. And then we can follow that up with another attack there, and we're likely just going to go around stabbing people out. Now, Shadow Blade is part of the game. It's not cheating, but you can see here how powerful it can be, going around just literally stabbing people to their demise. And then since I have haste on my character, we can then go ahead with another Booming Blade to another character, and then follow this up with another stab. Yeah, this becomes pretty crazy, and there's 2 spellcasters right here, so we'll just go ahead and poke this one, and then if I step any closer, we'll get hit with the Mother Brain. So I normally do Action Surge, but yeah, you can see there, it tears through enemies. So we just got hit with Command Grovel, 19 to save, we rolled a 16, womp womp. We're not really likely to succeed on this again. We got a dice roll of 11 plus 5 bonuses. We'll try it again though, and we got hit with the Command. So not always this Indomitable work, but sometimes it does. And we got hit with the Command again, nice. And we finally didn't get hit with by whole person or command, so we're gonna go crazy with our Booming Blade again. Yeah, the damage potential from this build is pretty crazy. So again, always start with your Booming Blade, otherwise you don't get that bonus action attack, and then you can go around just literally stabbing people left, right, and center. And the damage from this class is just nuts with Shadow Blade. Again, you can go, another trick here is if you didn't want to use this, I'll just eat that opportunity attack, you can literally go and throw Nyrelna. And then what happens is once Nyrelna is thrown, it then replaces Shadow Blade as your weapon, so then you can start using this instead if you wanted to use like the Zephyr Flash ability or any of those extra abilities. So yeah, there's a lot of ways you can go about playing an Eldritch Knight. It's a very powerful class. Doesn't have to just be a thrower now. You can be a stabber thanks to Booming Blade giving it actually a massive buff with that bonus action attack. So yeah, try out the Eldritch Knight today. It's got quite a buff from patch 8. Hit the subscribe button below if you found this video useful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.